Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at an update to the BAT server, BAT server 2, which came out just before Christmas in 2025. So what is the BAT server? Well, it's an add-on. It only works with EDIUS 11, and it's an add-on that's been created by a guy called Mick who works at EDIUS.net, EDIUS.net being the distributors for EDIUS. So not officially made by Grass Valley, it's made by the distributors. Mick, being a jolly clever man, has added a lot of things into it. It's made possible by the fact that EDIUS 11 has this thing called the Chorus Hub, which lets other people write programs that hook into it. So we produced this last year. It added a nice few things into EDIUS, and you can make your own up if you knew what you were doing. And I've done a few videos about that. BAT Server 2 revamps the interface a bit, and it also adds in quite a lot of extra new functions. So in this video, first I'm just going to look at the new interface and how you edit BATs and what all the different tabs mean and so on. And then in the subsequent videos, I'll be looking at the other new features that it's got. First of all, how do you install it? I've done videos on this before, which include how to install it. But to install it, simply go to EDIUS.net. Now, I'll put a link to this page in the description, but go to EDIUS.net, EDIUS BAT server, run down here and download this thing here, the EDIUS Setup Manager. You might have an EDIUS Setup Manager already on your system. It's the thing that most people use to install EDIUS. This will add some extra features to it. So you run that. Now, obviously, you do this without EDIUS running. And if EDIUS is running, it'll tell you stop EDIUS running and run it again. So you let it get on with it. And then it'll give you an option, first of all, to update any bits of EDIUS that you need to have updated. And then secondly, it'll give you option to do stuff with the BAT server. So here we are. This is looking at my system and saying, yeah, you've got the latest version of EDIUS 11, Viz Title, Vitacine, and Acoustica. They're all on there. I haven't got the Blackmagic drivers on here because I'm actually using a laptop, so it doesn't have a Blackmagic gizmo, so I can ignore that. But if any of these needed updating, I would just tick it and let it update. Click Next and you'll come onto this screen, which is where it installs the stuff for the BAT server. Now you can see I've already got the BAT server installed, but some of them need to be updated, and some of them aren't installed. The obvious thing you're going to need at the top is the BAT server tools and FFmpeg Essentials. This is an important part of it. I just always tick that and let it do it. FFmpeg is a free thing that lets you do all sorts of stuff with video, and BAT server uses that to do all sorts of stuff. So I tick those two for a start. Then you can come down and tick other things. Now, I happen to have that one installed. If you're installing from scratch, that one wouldn't be there, so you'd have to tick it. And this one was there already in BAT server 1. Some of these are the new stuff. So a lot of them involve speech to text and text to speech. So speech to text, this sort of thing, is what you will use to make subtitles, or I might use it to just transcribe a sequence for me so I can actually look through it and find particular parts of the sequence based on the text. That's what these two will do. The first one will use an NVIDIA card. The second one will use an NVIDIA NPU or iGPU. So an NPU is a neural processing unit which is on the latest processors, and an iGPU is your Intel graphics card. It's the thing that does the quick sync. I've been using the NVIDIA one because all of my desktop systems have got really good NVIDIA cards, and I find that is really good enough, so I haven't bothered with that one. You could tick both and stick both in. There's no disadvantage to having both. The only problem is it's all going to take up space. You'll notice this is going to take up 4.6 gigabytes worth of space on your C drive. All of these things need extra stuff to actually work, because what the BAT server does is it takes some existing software that people have written, mostly free stuff, and it then sticks that on your computer and lets EDIUS link into it and use it. So of course you need that extra stuff, and you'll notice here it takes me an extra 2 gigabytes to put on the iGPU one as well as the NVIDIA one. But the only harm in ticking it is the fact that it'll use up a bit more space, and it's warning you here you're going to run out of space. And yeah, you don't have the option to put them anywhere else. They have to go where it wants to go. Now, if you haven't got any space on your C drive, you've either got to make space on the C drive or put in a bigger C drive. First thing I've got is speech to text, which, like I say, is subtitles. I use that all the time for all the YouTube videos. If you're watching the subtitles on this video, they were done using that. Next, you have all these different text to speech options. And you can see there's quite a lot of them. And for each one, you've got a speech to text by Kokoro and a speech to text by Kokoro Env. So if I choose to install that one, it will want to install that as well. I mean, literally just let it do it. These are the important bits. This is the bit that does the job. This is just letting you put in the thing that goes into EDIUS to talk to it. If you only put that in and you don't stick that in, then when it comes to use it, it'll download it anyway. So just let it do both. Text-to-speech basically means you write some text and then it uses one of these engines to turn that into speech. So it will be using a specific voice that it's programmed with, or even some of these will actually let you use your own voice. You can take a WAV file and create a voice file out of that and then use it to take text and turn it into speech. And I haven't done it that much to be able to compare all the different ones. The best information I've got comes from Mick, who posted this on the EDIUS forums. He says, Kokoro Open Vino, which is that one there, brings up a tab and you can type in some text. So if you just want to type your own text, you use that one. The other Kokoro one will either accept an audio file or a viz title subtitle input, but only does English. So this one lets you just type in the text. The other Kokoro one will let you use an audio file or a viz title file. And the third one is based on Chatterbox, and as he said, it supports some more languages, although it's a bit slower, and it will let you take a sample of your own voice. So this is where I could take a sample of my own voice and then write something out, and I'll get it to read it out for me. I'll have that as one of the things that I show off in the later videos. But that's what the differences are. Now, personally, because I've got lots of space, I just tick the lot. It'll take longer to install because it's got to keep downloading all these extra bits, but then it gives me all the options. The only disadvantage of picking all of them is the fact that it takes up space. Now, after all these text-to-speech things, we then have a new upscaling thing. So this will use a particular upscaler, which is for in video cards. And I think it does work on processors as well, although I've only used it on video cards, but it will use AI to do better upscaling than you can do with EDIUS. Now, I've used lots and lots of different AI upscalers, and my favorite happens to be Topaz at the moment. They are developing rapidly. This is using an option that's free. It is definitely better than EDIUS. It's a lot quicker than going off to Topaz, but it doesn't do as good a job as Topaz. So again, I'll go through that one later on. Then there's also this AI Smart Mask. So this is using AI to try and mask out objects. But you've got a person, you want to stick something behind them. You have to actually draw a mask around them, and that mask has to follow them as they move around. This will try and do it for you with AI. Jolly clever. Now, there are other things that the BAT server adds, which aren't in this list, but they just go in automatically. There are things like you can choose to delete a file no matter where it is on the computer. And a lot of them are little things. A lot of those were there in the first place. This is all the stuff that it needs to download new things for. There's other stuff in there which you'll notice when you get to EDIUS. Obviously, the EULA is the licensing agreement, which you ought to read, because you have to accept the licensing agreement and then install. And then you let it get on with it. So now it's going to go ahead and it's going to download all of those bits and pieces. And it'll take a little bit of time to do it. And when it's finished, you'll be able to go into EDIUS and start using some of those things. And this is going to take a little bit of time. It depends on how fast your interweb is. So what I'm going to look at next is the new interface that we got with Viz Title 2, and then how you add in some of these options, and then I'll go through the options specifically. You might notice slight changes in the interface between what you're seeing and what's in my video. I have been testing this out before it came out, so I filmed some of this video and then there were some slight changes to the interface. It's things like some of the bits of text got a bit bigger and clearer, for example. So nothing major, but if you notice a slight difference, it's just because things have changed very, very slightly since when I started doing this video. Also, if you watch this in a few months' time, there'll be some other changes as well, because Mick is constantly developing this. He's constantly adding in new plugins. The other thing to mention about this, it is free. It is something that I found to be very reliable, but it is actually not something that's done by Grass Valley themselves. I found it to be incredibly useful, and it just lets me do lots of extra things which I wish were just in EDIUS natively. But I'm just so glad he's written something that adds them in anyway. So one of the biggest changes with BAT Server 2 is the way that you access the settings. Now previously we've come down to the EDIUS Setup Manager, right-clicked and gone to BAT Server Panel, which will work. It brings up a different looking BAT server panel, but it does bring it up for you. So it brings it up here in a web page and you can do stuff here. But you don't have to, because you can access it directly inside of EDIUS. So all you've got to do is come up to Tools and then go to BAT's Panel. And there may be other things that pop up under Tools as other things get added to the BAT server. But for now, that BAT's Panel gets you to this, which as you can see is the same kind of panel I had a minute ago in a web browser. Now you might find sometimes that you get this when you go into the BAT server, asking you to refresh it. This is because the BAT server isn't running. Now if it's got turned off for some reason, just pop out of EDIUS, go to this little icon on the desktop, double click on it, and it will start the BAT server up. And then once you're going back into EDIUS, you can just click refresh and you'll have it working. You can get the BAT server to start with Windows. To do this, you need to do something with a BAT server icon that should be in the tray down here. Generally isn't down there by default. So to get it working, go to the Start menu and then look through this list of stuff. Now this is Windows 11. They have literally just changed the Start menu around in the last couple of days. So this is the new looking menu, which seems to start like this, and I find incredibly hard to find anything. So I change it to either grid or list. Once I've got it in list, it's a bit more familiar and I can pop through this lot and find the EDIUS Power Tool BAT Server folder. Now open up that and it pops up with this thing. Sometimes it doesn't have these lines written down here. Again, stupid thing about this Windows 11 update. What are they thinking? But anyway, once you've found the EDIUS Power Tools, find that thing, the EDIUS Power Tool BAT Server tray icon, and double click on it, and it will stick a little BAT server icon down here next to the clock. It'll also open up a typical BAT server window, but primarily I just wanted to get this little icon next to the clock. Now I've got the icon, you can go down there, right click on it, and you can say here, Auto Start Tray with EDIUS Off. So if you tick that, it'll start the BAT server when you start Windows. Without that, the BAT server is meant to start when EDIUS starts. Maybe it doesn't, and maybe that's why you get this can't reach this page thing. But if you do that, it'll start with Windows starts. You'll have the little BAT server icon down there all the time, and it should work when you go into EDIUS every time. Obviously, there's a couple of other things down here, so you can open the BAT server panel in the browser, which is that thing. You can update it, which I'll talk about a bit more in a second. Obviously, you can close it, and you can open the help page. And if you exit it, it'll get rid of it from the tray down there. But the whole point was I wanted that to be set so that now I know the BAT server is running every time I start EDIUS, and I don't ever get this can't reach this page thing. Let's make this really big. So I'm going to hold down on Shift so that everything doesn't lock together and make it very, very big. And now you can see you've got the BATs panel, which shows you the lists of BATs that are installed. And there are some here which I've added in myself, and there are some here which just come out of the box with it. Plus a bunch of different tabs up here. And then if you scroll down, there's some settings and some other options like being able to remove all custom menus, blah, blah, blah. But this now is how you can control the BAT server. Now, before I go and look at some specific examples of some of those things, I just want to talk about what all the rest of this stuff does. So first of all, obviously the BATs tab shows you this list of BATs and then gives you this different stuff at the bottom. This little bit here, status window settings, that changes the window that pops up. It pops up with a window that tells you what's going on in the background as you do it. This will change it. So if I wanted to change the text in that window to be yellowy orange, and I wanted the background color to be totally black, or I want the background color to be a bit more transparent, so that'll govern how transparent it is. I want to change the size of the font. Do that. And now that window that pops up in the background as it's doing stuff changes to something else. So for example, let's take this clip, right click on it, and I'm going to use that upscaling thing. Now I'll let that go and I'll come back to what the upscaling thing does, but now you can see the window that pops up is a different color. In fact, I fiddled with it so much that I could hardly see it. So I'm going to come back and change that and make it less transparent. And I'm going to make the font size a bit bigger. And then I'm going to save the settings. You can only change that bit when it's not doing stuff in the background. Now I mentioned these things down here, obviously that opens the updater, that one removes all the entries, and that stops the BAT server. Now there's a lot of other things that you can do in here. For example, take that thing there, that's a deinterlacing thing that I've set up. It's set to go in the bin, so if I right click in the bin, this will turn up. I can just click on that and say no, move it to the timeline, or copy it to the timeline. I copy it to the timeline, it's in the bin and on the timeline. So now let's go put that onto the timeline, right click, and here you can see I've now got, deinterlace with QTMGC, because I just copied it to the timeline, as well as having it in the bin. You can say what type it is. So if you click on here, that will say whether it's for stills, whether it's for audio, or whether it's for whatever. So you can also change the type here. Some of these would say they work on video, some of these say they work on audio. I might add in something that's meant to work on stills, but if it doesn't get it right, you can just click on that and change it to what it's supposed to be. But the biggest thing I can do here is I can edit the BATs. Now, in previous versions, you've had to do this outside of EDIUS. Now you can do it inside of EDIUS. So let's take that thing there. I want to change something about it. Just right click on it and edit. And there we are, I've now got to a text editor. All these things are batch files. So they're basically text files with .bat0 at the end of it. And it tells it to run a bunch of different commands. Now, you might look at this and you say it's all Greek. And yeah, if it is, you don't have to fiddle with this at all if you don't want to. But if you do want to, we've now got an editor for it built straight into the interface. At the top here, you've got the actual bat file. Down here, you've got all the possible things that you can add to it. And if you go to any of them and click the little plus, it'll tell you what that does. Now, I've done very, very little of fiddling with all of this, because mostly the batch files I've got there I'm happy with in the first place. But there are very simple things that I can fiddle with. Like, for example, I've put in this one, target path. Now, without a target path, the clip you're going to make will go next to the original. With a target path, it will go wherever you decide. So that wasn't in there in the first place. So what I did was I popped down here and I looked for something. And, oh, target path. Let's have a look at that. Your target path can be used to select a different folder. Oh, that's what I want. I want to use that. So I am going to type that ::space target underscore path equals. All right. So I'm going to come up here, : space target underscore path equals. Now you notice it was red up until the point I made a proper command. Now it's gone green, so I now know I've typed it correctly. And I want to put those somewhere. Now I could just type it, or another thing that I do rather than type this stuff is I shall go and I shall make up a path in Windows Explorer, go into it, click on this line here, and it shows me the path, so I can copy it and then paste it. Very simple. I have now added a target path. Let's save it. Now when I next use that, all my files will go there. The submenu up here, these things are popping up on submenus. So if I go to the bin, right click, that pops up on a deinterlace submenu. If I don't like that, come back to the BAT server, edit it, and change the submenu there. Just change the name to something else. Everything goes red, tells you need to save it. Save it. Come to here, right click. I've now got a DVC stuff folder. So there are very simple things you can change in there. Save, back. Now it's back on deinterlace. So there are very simple things that you can change in there, and they're complex things like this, which I'm not going to fiddle with at the moment. Actually, I wanted to show you that you can edit them very easily now inside of the BAT server. Another option on right clicking is you can open in File Manager. This means Windows Explorer. It shows you where it actually exists on the computer. And you can also right click and delete. So that is now no longer in existence. You don't really need to come to the File Manager and look very often, but I might come there if I'm going to be fiddling in depth with these files. Again, you don't really need to, because pretty much they do everything you want straight off the bat. Next up, we have different headings along here. So obviously there's a help thing, which will take you to the EDIUS.net webpage, which shows you a few videos. There's logs. So these logs will tell you what's been going on. Very rarely look at that, but I mean, it's just told me I've removed these things, for example. That's the thing that's just last happened. If I do something and it doesn't work, I'll have a look in here. The most common problem I've had is that I try to do something and it doesn't work, and you come up here and it says file not found. That's because for some reason EDIUS hasn't registered the file properly in the bin. And I find the simplest way to sort that out is to just delete the file from the bin and put it back in again. But the logs are there to help you if something goes wrong. The language, pretty straightforward. The one I've just jumped over was this one, tabs. What does tabs do? Well, down here I've got a tab that says BAT server panel. I can add other things in here if I want to. I can take that as a web page, put it in here. I have now got my website turning up in EDIUS's bin. Can't think of a good reason why I'd want that, but there are some programs that you can get. There's image programs and effects programs that work on the internet, and you can get them to turn up in the EDIUS bin if you want to, just by adding in a tab. I'm going to delete it because I don't want that there. So that's got rid of the tab. It only works for stuff that's on the internet. So for example, it will not work if you want to get my tutorial, which will be on your local computer, popping up in here. It only works for internet pages, but you can add them in if you want to. The main thing that's got added in is the BAT server panel. I think that's a big advance over version 1. You've added in everything inside of EDIUS, and you can edit inside of EDIUS, you can add stuff in all from inside of EDIUS, you don't have to pop out to anything else. Final thing to point out is what's written down here at the bottom. It is designed and created by Mick in his spare time. So again, it is written by Mick, who worked for EDIUS.net. Very clever person, a bit like a German Ringo, if you're familiar with people that used to work with me. He has done all of this in his spare time, and he's still fiddling and adding stuff to it. If you learn enough, you can do it yourself. But it's nice he's done a lot, so we don't have to do it ourselves. Next thing I want to do is go and look at some of these specifics. I won't be going through everything because I've covered some of this before on this channel. But if you get the latest version of my EDIUS 11 tutorial, I've got a whole section on the BAT server in there, which is done using version 2 and does cover everything as well. But specifically, I am going to be looking at the beat detection and scene detection options. Then I'm going to look at the speech to text, the AI upscaling, and the masking option that we've got, plus a couple of other bits and pieces. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you know when the next videos come out. Please like the video, all that usual sort of thing. And if you want to know more about EDIUS and so on, go to my website, www.dvctraining.co.uk. And I'll see you for the next video, which will be on beat detection and scene detection.